Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the second half of our event, to our Professional Women's Networking Forum. I'm Lesley Kaplan. Some of you have already been with us through the first half. Great. And if you're staying on, that's amazing. For those of you that are joining now, welcome. I'm delighted to welcome you to this session, which is once a month that we meet up, and we have a fabulous business session as well as networking, getting to know each other and getting to build relationships. Today, we have a wonderful session. We have not one speaker, but we have three speakers. So I'm delighted to invite to our panel, who I'll be introducing in just a moment, Arielle and Sara. You can actually both unmute yourselves now. I know I did mute you. So welcome to them. Welcome to all of you in this very emotional week that we've been going through. And yes, as I've written and as I always said, staying in business is not always easy during emotional times, because we have to force ourselves to be extra focused. And that's what actually separates being successful in business, or often not, is where we do lose that focus. So in a week like this week, and we're going to be facing more of that, we wish our nation, Am Yisrael, safety, hostages a safe return. And of course, we do need to keep going, because that is what keeps the country going. So what I'd like to do is firstly just tell you how we're going to be working today. And then I'm going to be just introducing our speakers that can just share a couple of words with you. We have two sets of breakout rooms this time. We're going to have one just after I've introduced the speakers in the very beginning, and one a little bit later. They'll be approximately 10 minutes each. As I said, if you're afraid of breakout rooms, you don't feel comfortable in breakout rooms, you're not obliged to join. However, it is an opportunity to get to know people, and certainly the topic is branding, and that's what, if you are a woman in business, that's what branding is all about, is that people do get to know you and see you, especially if they've met you online. So let them meet you here as well. For branding purposes, what I'd like to recommend is, if you do not have your full name showing here, or even your first name, sometimes people just write other things because they don't feel comfortable showing it. I do suggest, certainly for the breakout rooms, that you do rename yourself, or at least show your full name, because you are your brand is your name. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our two speakers, who are going to be just sharing a couple of things with you, and we'll be getting into more detail about who we are and what we do. So Arielle, I'm going to be actually spotlighting both of you for a moment. Okay, and Sara as well. And Arielle, firstly, good morning. Welcome. Arielle and Sara are both very well known in the women's business circles, Anglo circles, and maybe even Israeli circles. Arielle, who is a brand designer, Sara, who is a brand photographer. Just give us one introductory sentence before we kick off, before we go into the breakout rooms, and we're going to have fabulous energy today.
Well, I believe that finding your brand gives you the confidence to present yourself strongly and consistently.
Okay, amazing. Short and sweet and to the point, and we're going to hear lots more about it. Sara, how about you? Good morning.
Good morning, Lesley. Yes, I help entrepreneurs feel comfortable on camera and confident to post on social media. And I will be discussing branding photography and how to show up your authentic self.
Okay, amazing, fabulous. So as it's a topic of branding, and we all talk about branding, I'll give you my formal elevator pitch of what I do when I start talking a little bit later, is that there will, and there may be a slight overlap with what some of us are going to be saying. However, we each have a different angle. And if there is an overlap, it means that that point is exceptionally important, that we chose to all mention it. However, we each, as I say, will be focusing on something slightly different that you're bound to hear and to learn lots of information. So without further ado, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be going into the breakout rooms. I'm randomly selecting the breakout rooms. We're going to be dividing into 5 rooms. If I see that some people are not joining and that we need to merge rooms, I will do that. If you need help in the breakout room, I will do that too. Just, request help, and I'll be able to assist you. And I will be checking, we'll be merging too, and seeing who's in the different rooms and what's going on. All right, so for 10 minutes, we're going to dive straight into it. And what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be introducing yourself, your elevator pitch, saying what you do, saying who your client is or who you assist. And if you have an ask, you're needing a particular type of client, you're wanting a particular type of thing, focusing on the what's in it for them. So let's go straight into the rooms, okay? Straight in. As you just joined, you thought you could sit back with your cup of coffee. You still can, except in the breakout rooms. And as I said, don't run away. And if you want to just stay in the lobby, feel free. So I'm going to create the rooms now, and we're going to be kicking off. And a reminder that I do not record, I'm pausing. All right, welcome back to the main session out of the breakout rooms. I hope that everyone got a chance to speak. If you didn't, it means that we need to, whoever was in that group, to polish and work on your elevator pitch, which is meant to be approximately 60 seconds. So don't worry if you didn't, you will get the opportunity to introduce yourself and talk in the next session. So without further ado, I'm going to now highlight our first speaker, who is Arielle Kwestel. Arielle, I'm going to replace you as a spotlight. Good morning. As I say, Arielle is very well known as a brand designer. Take it away. The floor is yours. 15 minutes with Arielle. I'm going to be needing to use a stopper to time us in order that we can get through everything that we need to. Take it away, Arielle. Delighted to have you here.
How are you? Today I am going to talk about the strategizing, crafting, and maintaining your brand, just like Lesley introduced. And the first thing I want to discuss is what branding isn't. It's not your logo. In fact, your logo is way down in the corner here. There's a lot of other parts to branding, and the way I break it down is what you do and what you show. And the bottom corner is the part that I do on a professional level, so I'm going to be focusing on that. So the end result of that is your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Now, who said it? They say Jeff Bezos, but I've heard it attributed to Steve Jobs. So we're going to just go with that. So we're going to talk about what you do enhances what people say about you when you're not in the room. Okay, so how do you influence what people say when you're not in the room? There's three aspects to branding. First, you craft a strategy, which means doing the research, connecting the dots, making sure that there's some sort of unified principle. And then when they say optimize it, it means finding a visual language that expresses that one message that you gleaned from crafting your strategy. And maintaining it means applying it across media, using it exclusively, and I'll just give you a few tips on how to do that. So let's go to the first one, crafting a brand strategy. Okay. There's three elements to a brand strategy. You, yourself, your competition, and your audience, and how they interact with each other. And the strategy is where they all work together. And we're going to discuss how there's overlap between all of them and how they work together. The first thing you do, we're talking about now, is your audience. That was the upper left-hand corner of the Venn diagram. You got to ask your audience what it was like working with you. What was it like after working with you? Was there a difference in their business? Why did you hire me, not the competition? And if you very often, if you're lucky, you will see that there's patterns. Like, for example, when I did this, a lot of my clients used the same adjective over and over again. It was the word sharp. So I concentrate, like I am conscious of the word sharp when I talk about my branding, when I create my brands, when I do my own branding. Those were all relevant pieces of information for me. The next thing is that there's more to asking your audience what they feel about you. And one way that branding experts do this is they actually imagine an imaginary person, and they imagine who they are, what they look like, what they wear, what their job title is, how they feel about things, what are their main pain points in life, in their work. To me, actually, it's really important to understand their personality type, because I think that when you're looking for clients or clients are looking for you, you really do have to be able to communicate with each other. And I think it's a lot like making friends. And so what kind of people do you relate to? What their personality is. And so there's two goals here. It's not just what their personality is and what they're looking for, but also what kind of brands they're using in their lives that is comfortable, familiar to them, so that you want to fit into those brands, or if you're going to disrupt it in a way that they'd appreciate. So it gets a lot of complex trying to understand your client's clients when you're designing a brand. After that, you have your competition. This is the second circle of the Venn diagram. And the questions are, what does your clients, okay, so for me, it's the brand. So if you're designing your own brand, what do your clients see in your competition? What vibe do they predict? How are you similar to your competition? How are you unique from your competition? Is there a trend? A lot of times you will, if you do some research into your competition, you'll discover that they are often appearing the same way as each other. For example, one of my clients is a YouTube expert on Monday.com. That's her job. She's a consultant. She helps people set up Monday.com systems for their companies, and she's very thorough. And we were researching her competition, and it turns out that most of her competition have project an influencer vibe. Yellows, pinks, scripts, very millennial, very young, very sisterly. And she wanted to differentiate herself, which was very easy because she's a completely different person, completely different presentation. She's very businesslike. She comes across as calming, reassuring, professional, and reliable in a way that the others did not. So we created an entirely different brand for her. So even though they're in the same fields, their vibe was completely different, and it gave us a strong opportunity to make that differentiation clear. The third part of that Venn diagram is you. You take this into account after you've looked at the other people so that you're conscious again of what is going on around you. This is a lot of people ask, what is your why? Why are you doing this in the first place? Is there a unique way in which you communicate with your clients? Is there a unique kind of insight that you have? A lot of times I ask my clients this question. Well, no, I always ask this question. Is there a repeated metaphor or a phrase that you use? For example, many years ago when I was still doing personal branding, I was working with a parenting coach, and she often said to her clients, she would say, you're going to feel like a butterfly coming out of your cocoon in your new life. And it was obvious to me that the brand design had to include butterflies. So we did a hand-drawn butterfly and lots of watercolor backgrounds for the whole look. So it really does depend what you're saying. And it does, in that case, it really related to how she related to her clients, what made her different from her competitors, because it was a distinct metaphor that she related to, and so did her clients. And then more questions you're going to ask yourself if it's your brand. So now this becomes interesting because if it's a personal brand, it's a lot easier. What's your personality? Can you label yourself? You know, the old school, the nerd, the kid who walks around in a leather jacket, because you're trying to imagine what it would look like if you were going to visualize it. So it's okay to do that. But when it's not your brand, when it's a company, it becomes a little bit more challenging because you have to think outside of yourself. What do you want other people to see about that brand? It doesn't necessarily mean you at all. It does help, but it's not the same thing. One of the things I talk about here is tone of voice. Tone of voice is very important here. I'm going to give you an example. The person who says, "Hello, dear, would you like a cookie?" is very different from the person who says, "I would like to thank my associates for showing up today." It's a different vibe, it's a different personality, and you can imagine the visual language that comes out from somebody who's speaking in those two different ways is a very different visual language. In another situation, I like to ask, it's car brand. If you were a car brand, or if your brand had a car, what kind of car would it be? They actually end up being very relevant in the long term. Something that brand specialists, again, like to use as a way, it's a tool. It can help you really define any of the generalities that you came up before. It puts it in focus. For example, I did a social media manager. I did her branding. But we looked into all the other social media managers. And again, a lot of them, because it's social media, had a brand that conveyed influencer. Again, pinks, yellows, scripts, fonts, sisterly. It was everybody. And on the other hand, one of her main competitors, she was very type A. She was very organized, but it was still very sisterly, very millennial, very influencery. On the other hand, the social media manager I was working with had a completely different approach, because she and her clients both repeated how she would go down a rabbit hole to find new ideas. And her clients loved it because she was exploring new technologies, new ways of approaching things. And it was a completely different perspective than every other social media manager that I'd come across. So her brand archetype was the explorer, which is completely different. So even though they're doing the same thing, you can imagine the visual language that comes out of that is completely different. So now you have all the tools. You know what your clients want, you know what your competitor's doing, and you know how you differentiate. What do you do with all that? Now your job is to find a visual language that represents all of that. And I'm taking this from the writing world. Show it, don't say it. You don't need to repeat multiple adjectives or explain how you do it. You want the visual language that you use to convey what you're trying to say without words. So some of the basic tools are colors. As you can see, they each, even though we don't realize it, there are subliminal messages that colors give. Again, this is not set in stone, it's just a suggestion. But for example, when you think of black and white, you think of technology. On the other hand, you also think of academia. So it depends. And blue, big tech, IBM, stuff like that. For some reason, masculine and financial. It's just come about that way. And this is Western. For example, as we know, in the Far East, red is a very different vibe than it is here, and white and red. I think one of them is, red is mourning or something like that. So it can vary across cultures. What is interesting to me is pink, because pink we think, oh yeah, calm, warm, romantic, feminine, but actually strong pink is bold and creative and can be very edgy. I have there's a brand designer that I follow online, and he's a guy, and he uses this crazy fuchsia pink as his brand color. So it doesn't necessarily mean warm and soft stuff. But even the fonts have personalities. For example, as you know, the top one, which is not Times New Roman, but that family, very stable, academic, old school. And the second one, which is round and simple, is a SAS font. And you see this particular font all over the place. It's Monday.com, among other things. SAS is software as a service for anybody who doesn't know. And as you can see, script, again, very personal, coach, one-on-one, sisterly. Be aware, and this I find fascinating, is that script is going out because they're not teaching it in schools in the West anymore. I don't know what's going to be, but just be aware of that if your clientele is younger, that script may not be your best option. And then there's images. And again, Sara is going to talk way more about this, but I'm talking about the kinds of images in your brand, not necessarily photos of yourself. But as you can see, it doesn't have to be a stock photo. An illustration of the same thing, I plugged in Earth in both of these cases and got two totally different images. Each one has a completely different brand vibe, even though they're of the same thing. Last, I wanted to discuss logos. Again, as you can see, I didn't make logos the main thing. A logo is just one small part of your entire brand. There are some basic tenets. Simplify, simplify, simplify. The logo complements. It's a note to your entire brand identity. It is a shorthand thing. It does not, you don't want it to be so complicated nobody could understand what it is. No putting don't make the letter into the thing if it's complex. It has to be a simple, abstracted thing if you're going to do that. Then we want to understand, okay, now I know all these tools. I understand colors, fonts, what a logo should do, photos, my personality, all the things that I'm putting into my brand. Where do I find design ideas? What do I do with it? The first thing I do is emulate other industries. For example, when I was going over the brand onboarding work with one of my clients, he's a pay-per-click advertiser, and he manages pay-per-click campaigns. And I asked him if his brand was a car, what kind of car would it be? He said Honda. He was like so sure about it. He had this whole vision. He's like, smoothly oiled machine, reliable, basic, simple. I don't want to overthink it, just honest. So I actually looked into the car industry, and even though he is a pay-per-click advertising campaign manager, his brand emulates the automotive industry. And it was very relevant for him, and it's made him stand out from his competition because it wasn't about advertising and marketing, it was about automotive visually. So that was actually quite fun. And the second one, obviously you can hire somebody who knows how to make that transition for you, who knows how to take the language and translate it into something visual. And the third one is to surf Canva, and I will get into that shortly. Because we're up to maintaining your brand. Again, all these pieces are there, but you don't know what to do with them. So my rule is stand out in a sea of Canva. Because just imagine the old days when we were doing print, even now, right? I started out in direct marketing many years ago, and basically you don't run an ad for less than 6 months in the same place, the same language, the same look, because people need to see it consistently to even acknowledge it exists. So it builds awareness to be consistent. So in a sea of Canva creations, because now Canva is available to everybody and everybody's doing their ads and their marketing with Canva, they're throwing together something on Canva. If Canva suggests something seasonal, that doesn't mean you should use it. Because a defined, consistent visual language gives you authority. So we're going to discuss how to utilize Canva in a way that actually keeps you consistent. Okay, so let's go look at Canva for a second. Okay, these are all templates that say the same thing. We are hiring. But as you can see, each one of them has a completely different personality. The first one was super groovy, and I don't know, a very edgy clothing brand would use that. This one more like Gap or Still Clothing, because it just has that vibe. This one, I don't know what it is, but it's bolder and it's totally different than the others. And this one is a creative agency. None of these look the same, and yet they all say the same thing. So the question is, what do you do with that? So my recommendation is to do all the research for yourself in the first 2 steps, understanding your audience and yourself, and taking the clues from the colors, fonts, and photo styling that I was talking about, and find a template that correctly expresses the vibe that you're trying to express. And then save the fonts, save the colors, save the shapes, pay attention to the photo styling that it uses, and just use those shapes whenever you post. You can have a few templates, but still, if let's say you need a seasonal event, you can use that seasonal event, just change all the colors and fonts and treatments and backgrounds to the ones you save, so that every time you show up, you look the same and people understand who you are. They remember who you are. I know I've had a lot of small businesses tell me that this is boring, but what's boring to you is consistent to your viewers. Imagine they're getting flooded with all these different images that look different every single time. There's no way they're going to remember which is yours unless you look the same every time. And that is how brand clarity leads to thought leadership. One question: how many times did you see my logo during this presentation? Anybody know? Once. And how many stock photos? I used 2, just the Earth ones. That goes to show you that the logo and stock photos are not the main source of your branding. The main source of your branding is the colors and the fonts and the verbal language and how and where you present yourself. That's all.
Okay, amazing. Arielle, thank you. I gave you an extra minute or 2 because it was so interesting.
Oh,
so,
thanks.
of course, yes, all of you take note of Arielle's details, and Arielle will be staying around here, of course, in the session until the end, and she will also be in one of the breakout rooms. Thank you very much, Arielle. That was very, very interesting seeing the logos, the colors. I'm obviously more familiar with it, but for a lot of people, that was something that was new, that they've never seen it before. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions for Arielle, then please ask her in the chat, and we will have time, hopefully, to answer a couple of questions later, or Arielle can even answer them via the chat. All right, so what we're going to be doing before I share my bit about branding, I would just like to share a couple of information with you and a little bit of what's going on and upcoming events. Before I actually do so, I would just like, with a show of hands, I actually want to take off my spotlight for a moment, just for a show of hands. For those of you that don't have your screens open, we won't be able to see. How many of you have been in business for less than a year, that you're new in business, or you may be doing something else, that you've rebranded yourself? Anyone here in the room? No. Okay. How many of you have been in business up to 3 years? Okay, incredible. And Arielle's obviously doing, and both of you are obviously doing a great job of your branding, the fact that you're speakers here and you've been in business less than 3 years or up to 3 years.
More than 3 years.
More than 3 years.
More than 3
Okay.
years.
All
Yeah,
right.
no.
How many up to 5 years? 5 years, up to 5 years in business. All right. And how many of you have been in business for more than 5 years, which seems forever? All right. So that's the majority of you. Okay. So then you will find certain things interesting for sure in what I'm going to be sharing with you today. All right. So let me firstly spotlight, and I'll just say to you before I share my screen and share with some events, I'm delighted to see many new faces here today. Many of you I've met in person, whether it's online or in person, and we've been together for different groups. For those of you that are meeting me for the first time, I'm Lesley Kaplan. I'm the host of this series, and I've been fortunate to work with small to medium-sized businesses for close to 3 decades now in terms of building and branding their business, which is my tagline, my logo, in terms of business strategy, achieving their goals and finding the right ways and methods to achieve their goals, whether it means making a change and to basically maximize the way they work in business. So building and branding a biz is not a stranger to me. However, I will say I did find it quite challenging preparing my talk for today. Why? Not because I'm a stranger to it or because I deal with it all the time, because as the host, I gave Arielle and Sara the choice of saying what they wanted to say first. So I heard and saw what they were going to be talking about, which meant that I didn't want to lead to and have too much repetition. And when we're talking about branding, there are certain things that we need to say. So I needed to make sure to say it in a different way to what they were saying it in order that there wouldn't be too much. So without further ado, before we actually get into the branding part, I just want to share with you about some upcoming events, and then we're going to be getting into the branding. So make sure that you save these dates. Firstly, if you live in the Netanya area or even surrounding Netanya or even further than Netanya, we're having an in-person meetup on January 28th, where it's a nice intimate group. We have many people that come from out of the area, close to a train station. So you're welcome to very much join us. Free parking in the area, and we look forward to seeing you. I will be sending details. Then save this date. First time you're seeing it here. It hasn't been out anywhere on social media. We're having an evening event for both men and women on Wednesday, Feb the 19th from 8 to 9:30, which will include, like today, 2 sets of breakout rooms. It's an online free event. The speakers you can see here in the image, and we'll be talking about leads to loyalty. And obviously our brand and things that we're talking about today is something which is very relevant for building our customers, sales funnels, and relationships. So save the date and you will receive information about that. All of these are under the umbrella organization, the Israel Networking Hub. Many of you have already joined the Facebook group. It's not only a Facebook group. The Israel Networking Hub is also a business hub and events where these 3 things that we're talking about now, whether it's Monday Motivation, whether it's the women's or the for men and women or the Netanya group falls under that. If you haven't yet joined our Facebook group, I invite you to join it even now. Just go to Facebook, in the search, type Israel Networking Hub group, and it's a great place where you can promote and advertise your services as well as connect with others and build relationships. Regarding any of these past events, whether it's the Professional Women's or the Monday Motivation, if you haven't yet watched or if you do want to revisit certain recordings, we have different playlists. I invite you to join, to follow, to subscribe. That way it'll come into your feed every time we upload a new episode, and to follow on YouTube and on Spotify. I'm also the author of 2 books. One, as many of you know, is the Small Business Success Toolbox and Guide, which is how to build and brand your biz. Some of the principles we're going to be talking about today, and also Power Talks with Women Entrepreneurs. And we're going to be doing a raffle at the very end of today. So stay with us, because if you're in the session, you'll be entitled to the raffle. And many of you that are here today also appear in the book. It's available in Israel through my website, lesleykaplan.com, or on Amazon, paper or digital. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, then it is free. So without further ado, I'm going to take us straight into our topic. I actually mentioned to Arielle, funny that we both chose round balls to introduce our different balls to introduce our session. Arielle, maybe there's something in a ball or something being round for branding. So as I've said, my specialty is working with small to medium-sized businesses, many of them with a limited or non-existing budget. So today we're going to be talking about different elements of branding and how you can actually brand your business, whether you have a large budget or a small budget or a non-existent. So as Arielle mentioned before, branding is how your customers perceive you. And it is a process that's highlighted for a reason. We'll talk about it now. It's also about bringing out your unique name. No two brands are the same, and you are your brand. Especially whether you have, or if you have a service, then you are definitely your brand. Many times, if your brand is a product, people still know who's behind the product and the brand, but especially, and many of you, the majority are in the service industry. So this is where you are your brand, and it's all about how the customer sees you, perceives you, as Arielle said, what they say when you're not in the room. What branding is not, as she said too, is, even though logo, colors, all of these things are important, but it's not just about these elements. And one thing, as we said, for sure, it's not immediate. It's a process. It takes time, which is why I asked you how long you've all been in business, because different people here have different brand perceptions, and the audience and public and customers see them differently. And of course, it's not a copy paste, not a one size fits all. Each one of us is different. So what it is, as I said, built over time. And the whole idea is making your audience and your target market relatable, making yourself relatable to them. We are our brand, as I said. The whole idea is, what do we want to create? What message we want to create? I'll talk about that in a second. But what does a person say when they think about us? And what does our friends say about us? What does a client say about us? And the best way to do, and you'll see it's mentioned in another slide, is to actually ask them. And Arielle mentioned that too. If you're not sure what people are thinking about you, about your brand, the best thing that you can do is actually take the guts to ask them. And you may not be happy with what they say. It may surprise you, some of the things they say, but it's a way of actually growing and improving your brand by, yes, asking people and not just assuming what people think about your brand. It's a way of showing your uniqueness. It's a way of making sure that you touch people in a consistent way, that your branding is continuing. So how long does it take to create a brand? You'll see now in a second. And maybe you're asking yourself, if I am a new business, although I did ask you before, so most of you are not new businesses, how do I maintain consistency and my perception, or how do people perceive me in the long run? And of course, what do we have a budget if we don't have a budget to develop our brand? And it all falls down to the three things that I mentioned at the bottom. Number one, the resources that you do have. Number two, your strategy and what your goals are. Goal for two people in the exact same profession, take a business coach and consultant like myself. I may have very different goals to somebody else who is doing a similar thing, but yet no two of us are doing the exact same thing or in the exact same way. So if we're looking here at our branding, I'm not going to read every single thing. You can look at what applies to you. There's, of course, the different stages. When I say how long does it take to brand? Yes, consistency. It does take time. Of course, there's the first 6 months with anyone just building into their brand starting off. But of course, as we see, we have rebranding. We have many large businesses even that decide over the years to rebrand themselves. How many logos have we seen? And it's not just about the logos both of us mentioned before. We see a change or rebranding of somebody's logo, but people rebrand and change their logo to tell us that there's been a change, to tell us that things are happening, that it's not just the logo, and that there's many changes being made, usually improvements. Okay, no one would not want to make a change not to improve. So if you've been in business for 6 to 24 months, which is 2 years, so that's usually when we have what we call the drip effect. Like, as we say in Hebrew, the tiftafim, imagine a tap dripping. And that's exactly what it is, that you want to keep continuing with this drip effect, even after 24 months, that people will still know who you are, staying top of mind. And there's different ways of staying top of mind. We'll talk about it in a moment. Building relationships. It's not about the selling. It's about the what's in it for me, for them, in other words, the client. It's about building brand loyalty, identifying your target market correctly. And that's where many business owners make the mistake that they think it's just about the logos and the colors and the everything else. They don't correctly target their clientele, and which often means that they're branding them incorrectly or not branding them in the correct way. And there's a lot more to be said about it, which we can't go into all the details right now. The whole idea is, though, it's building it in the long run. And if you've been, like most of you have been here in business for at least 4 or 5 years more, then the whole idea is becoming a brand name, people trusting you, people recognizing you, people knowing what you stand for and what value you provide. So as we mentioned, it's about the perception. It's about what people feel about you, what they say about you. It's all about the emotions and about the needs. So I'd like you to think about for a moment, what emotion or what need is your brand creating? Are you creating a sense of empowerment? Are you creating pride, excitement, nostalgia? And these are just some of the words that I've used here, but there's a lot more. And if you're not sure what emotion your brand is creating, then I suggest you do a little bit about homework. As I said, ask people, but also think about what are you providing, what problems you're solving, which needs you're attending to, and what emotions usually come with those needs. Because if we're not sure what emotion we are creating amongst our clientele, then how do we know how to approach them? How do we know what content to put out there? And we have wonderful content writers here as well. How do we know what they are wanting? So that is super important. We need to know what needs our clients are wanting, or our customers, what problems we're solving, and are we expressing this in our brand? Are we telling them about our brand? Now you'll see at the bottom it says about strategy or tactics. One of the faults that many business owners do make is that they go straight for the tactics and they say, I need to be on Facebook, I must be on Instagram, I must be here, I must be there, I must be in this specific group. That comes secondary. The first thing that is important is our strategy. It's about our why. Why are we in business? Who is our client? How are we assisting them? Okay. And only afterwards is the when and where in the different groups where I need to be. So you don't need to be everywhere. We can't be everywhere. We have a limited time. So the more that we can actually focus exactly where our clientele is, that and our target market is, and obviously that's after you've done the exercise and the strategy of who your target market is and what is the service or the product that you're offering them. Only afterwards do you need to look at the tactics and how and what your message is going to be. So what we've mentioned before is the word USP. Many of you have heard me saying this before, your unique selling proposition. What is your unique selling proposition? What makes me different? And it's not just that I know about what makes me different, but do your clients know what makes you different? And that is your brand. Are you correctly emphasizing it in your tagline, in all your offerings, in everything you do, in the way that you connect with people, in the way that you say stay top of mind? And this applies to both online and offline. And consistency, not just in how and the number of times, but are we maintaining the same brand and sharing how unique we are and what we do? And at the end of the day, what the benefits are, not just the features. I'll mention about it a bit later, features and benefits. Benefits is basically what the person is getting, okay? Features is what you do. Benefit is what they gain. So we need to make sure that in all our messages about branding, we're explaining about what our benefits or what our USP is that benefits the client, that helps them with what they want to do. On social media, many of us are in the same groups on social media, and we see what people are putting out there, what they're writing. This is one way to stay, of course, top of mind. Even if you hate social media, either you get someone to do it for you, or even the person that does it for you, they're representing your overall brand, and they need to know what personality you need and want them to put out. Remember, going back to the emotions, the thoughts, the feelings that we want people to feel. So it's not just about posting, but it's how you show up, how you respond to other people, the language, the way you write it, the way you're interacting with other people, even the comments you make. These are all super important, okay? And where you decide that you want to show up. So Remember too, we want to be, the most important thing about all this is the word authentic. We need and must remain authentic in order for people to want to join our brand. That means even if you're commenting on other people's posts, don't do it just for the sake of comment. Really put thought into what you're saying, because that is part of your brand and that's part of connecting with people. It's all about our positioning. So each of us has to think about, with our brand, how we want to position ourselves. How do we want the client to actually see where we are, what we are? So this is where, and Arielle did mention it a bit about it as well, is that we need to also look at our competitors. And I'm very much in favor of competitors seeing them as collaborators, that we each have our USP. And if you're confident about your positioning and what you're doing in the market, then you won't feel threatened by your competitor. As I say, competitors offer the same things, but in a different way, or different things, but they're not you, and you are your brand. So you need to know what values you have, what are you bringing to the table, and in order to position yourself correctly, you need to, number one, be customer-centric, and we talk about it in our session in more detail in a month's time on Feb 19th. We need to make it all about the customer, not about ourselves, but about what is in for them. What are we doing for them? We need to show how we're different. We need to connect on an emotional level, and we need to show outcome, and we need to be outcome oriented, which means we have to show the client what they're going to gain, or our customers, or anyone out there that's paying attention to us, what's going to happen when they start working with you, what's going to happen when they start using your service or product. And this is, once again, where you want to be super authentic. Not everyone is going to double their income, but there are many clients that maybe when they start working with you will double their income. Maybe they have other KPIs, key performance indicators, and they're not only looking to double their income. Maybe they're looking to improve their income by 10 or 20% or 50%. Are you the person that can take them there? Maybe they're looking for brand awareness. Are you the person that can take them there? So think about your positioning, what you want. It's all related, as I said, to goals and vision, and how are you positioning yourself. Now, this I'm not going to be going into a lot of detail because Sarah is going to be talking about our brand story. As I said, we wanted to try have a slight overlap, but not too much. But just to ask yourself, are you telling your story? Do you have a story? And certainly if your story is strong enough, make sure that you give real life examples and that you are highlighting the benefits, how they benefit and what they gain from it. In other words, what it does and not just what it is, like the features. And every brand does have a story, a beginning, a middle, of an end. The whole idea, and as I say, Sarah will talk about it more, is to make yourself come across, and we should be trustworthy and authentic. So we're almost at the end here. One of the things is we want to, when you grow your brand, we want your clients, and you want your clients to become, and your customers and your target market, whoever you're trying to position yourself in, to become part of your story. The more that we can have brand ambassadors, as we call them, they'll be telling your story. They'll be endorsing your story. They'll be engaging with you. More people will identify with you. And that is how people build a successful business and become recognized by other people hooking on to what you do, by you being authentic and trustworthy. So to summarize, how do we, if we know about branding, we now have learned a little bit more about branding. Some of you may have known more about it before. Some of you are learning things now for maybe the first time. I'm not going to read every single thing here, but if you have a low budget, or as many new businesses when they start off, which they have, I don't want to say no budget, because you shouldn't be going into business if you don't have any budget. It's about the strategies. It's about how to build your brand with limited resources, which is usually what small to medium sized businesses have as compared to larger companies. The whole idea is clearly defining in the beginning your mission, your vision, and your values, and revisiting it regularly on a regular basis. And it's okay if you need to readapt your vision. Many companies have done it. When you start off, you're very idealistic. You don't always know exactly what you're getting into. And as your brand develops, as your positioning changes, We often decide to focus on certain things more than other things, even if you initially planned on working with a particular target market. This is when you need to go back to your mission, vision, and values, and you need to emphasize and highlight what your USP is, your unique selling proposition, what makes you different, your target market. Make sure you've chosen correctly your target market. When I say make sure, sometimes people only know afterwards. So this is where I use the words here, relative ability. We need to see how accessible and easy it is to get into that target market, how approachable it is. If you have no competitors in that market, don't say, yay, I'm going to go into that market. That may not be the correct market to go into because there's no competitors. Yes, it could be this untouched diamond that you find as an entrepreneur, but usually in a market that is attractive and sustainable, you will have competition. And as I mentioned earlier, instead of being afraid of the competition, collaborate with the competition and highlight your differences and show the client what you're all about in order to make sure that you position yourselves correctly. Stay in the correct groups and make sure, of course, number one, be customer-centric and offer yourself and offer your clients excellent service. Pretend that you're the client and be honest and ask yourself, what am I doing correctly to my clients and what not? And just to end off, we talk about branding. As we said, branding is not just products, it's not just logos, ways of staying top of mind besides social media, besides being active on the groups, besides showing content, besides showing value and giving highlights and tips. One very good way is, and my business, as I say, we've been doing this for 3 decades now. We work with clients of all sizes. For this is even larger companies. You don't have to be a large company to get your branding out. What we do, and I help clients with this, is that we target your client, your audience correctly and with products that match your audience, that would be suitable for your audience. So if you're thinking that maybe it's time to get something in terms of a product, it doesn't mean you have to do it right now, but don't think for one moment that it's only for larger companies. You could do it even on a very low budget, and that's a way of definitely staying top of mind. All right, I'm going to remove my spotlight. Any questions, as I say, you feel free, you're welcome to add to the chat. What we're going to be doing now, before Sara is talking, is we're going into another set of breakout rooms, also for 10 minutes. If one person can please monitor it, this is the time where you can unmute yourselves. And once again, you can stay in the lobby if you don't want to join. I'm going to be dividing us up into 5 groups. Okay, if I see that some of the groups like before, if I see that some are staying in the lobby, I'll move you around. One person, please be in charge. Elevator pitch, to the point, share what you do, who your client is, and anything about your brand, what makes you special. So unmute yourselves. We're going to be going into the breakout rooms. After that, we're going to be hearing from the amazing Sara. And we've also got the raffle where you're going to be in line to receive a copy of Power Talks with Women Entrepreneurs. And it's a fun raffle too. So I'm opening up the groups and I'm going to be stopping the recording at the same time. All right, so welcome back to the main lobby. And by the way, talking of products, and I saw this in one of the breakout rooms here, Sharon, L'chaim, this is all about what branding is about. Whenever I have a meeting online, I'm always using my branded products. Sharon has one of these too. So you can order online, you can order branded products anywhere, but when you're in a meeting, make sure you use your branded product or when you're with a client. All right, so I'm now delighted to introduce Sara Fefer, or Sara Fefer Duncan, Duncan Fefer. She uses both names. We actually spoke about it once before. So I'm going to replace the spotlight, Sara. So welcome. And Sara, as we said before, is a branding photographer. Thank you for being our guests. Please share with us about branding photography and how we can come across as best as possible. And as I say, before the end, we're going to be having a raffle, so do not run away.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I want to thank Lesley for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. And we've received a lot of amazing information. So I'm really impressed with those of you that stuck around until the end. And it's a great compliment to me. So thank you. We are going to explore what it takes to craft and optimize your brand through photography and do a little bit of like a mindful discovery meditation afterwards. I had to shorten it a little bit. So we won't be speaking as much about story, but I'm sure you could speak to Lesley about that in detail. So it's my first time speaking, so go easy on me.
Whoa, kola kavod. Come on, let's give her a hand. Let's make her feel at home and comfortable. Okay.
The truth is, actually, I've been on stage since I was 6 years old. I was in ballet and musical theater. But it was a little different. Somebody gave me the lines, and this time I had to come up with them myself. I also think it's a funny coincidence, although there absolutely are no coincidences, of course, that Lesley decided to bring on my new friend, Arielle, who I actually met in this spotlight a few months ago. So I encourage all of you new people or anybody that's been more quiet lately, to take the opportunity to really network. Don't stay in the lobby because you absolutely don't know who you're going to meet and where these opportunities are going to take you. Since then, Arielle and I have actually worked together, and we met up at a Hanukkah dance party and had a blast and just been keeping in touch ever since. So really love Lesley's spotlight. So I'm going to jump into this presentation. Can you see my screen, everybody?
Not yet.
Give me 1 second.
You may have put it up and just not hit the word share.
I'm going to put up my share screen. There we go. Here we go. Present. Okay. All right. So crafting and optimizing your brand with photography. Okay. So I love to listen to podcasts while I'm creating visuals. And one of them that I have been listening to recently is Chris Do. And he is a famous brand designer. And he interviewed Brian Collins, who is a world-renowned brand designer who has been developing an agency that is behind the biggest brands, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Coca-Cola, all the big names that we know. And he gives us a definition of brand that covers a little bit of what Lesley was saying, but basically he says that your brand is a way to differentiate yourself from the crowd to make sure that you don't become a commodity. He says even big companies are constantly changing in order to keep up with the culture. And it's something that we need to constantly be conscious of. So how do we do that? We've got to highlight what our superpower is. What lights you on fire? What are your goals? What are your values? And this is something that you want to be really getting in touch with. Redefining our goals is something that we do all the time. So too with our brand, what it represents, and therefore our visual presentation. We should always be thinking, how can I improve my brand's image? So here's another quote from Brian Collins. He says that all decisions you make in your life are emotionally driven and then rationally justified. So the bottom line is impactful branding activates the emotions. Brian says you've got to find a way into that emotional story because that's the area in the brain that activates us. And then afterwards, you can back it up with data to go for the sell when you're trying to connect with your audience. So let's define what is brand photography and how can it make an impact. Brand photography is photography with purpose. It has a marketing mindset. It contains images with intention behind them. As a business owner, you know that you want these brand images to not only provide brand awareness, but build your brand and ultimately drive more business your way, to have a collection of images that speak uniquely to your business. For example, if you have a promotion or you have a new business model, maybe your offer has changed. You don't want to be using generic images, as Arielle mentioned, stock photos. No. Only purposeful ones. So the way that brand photography goes beyond aesthetics is that, like we said, it connects with your audience. It has a marketing mindset. You've already done your research into what persona or profile your target market has, right? You know what kind of vibe they are, where do they shop, what their image is. It's kind of like, you know, George Orwell's 1984, but like a little less creepy. Now, what it means to have a marketing mindset is that, you know, it reminds me of a post that Arielle posted the other day in LinkedIn, which says the difference between marketing and branding. Branding is who you are, and marketing is how you tell people who you are. So when it comes to branding photography, there's a strategy built behind the photos in order to create that consistency in the brand message. The photos will tell people who you are by embodying what you do, as in the photographer at her the artist at her canvas, the masseuse at her massage table. It's documenting the process in a personal way that lets your audience into what you do and what moves you. Also, photos of you in your daily life and what interests you. These are all ways to engage your audience visually. Essentially, it's photography with purpose. My clients often ask me on a family shoot or a simcha event, can you just take my headshot for like LinkedIn or my website? But what people fail to realize is how much thought and preparation goes into business style photography. And it's a shame that so many people miss the boat when they could really be making, you know, absolute making the most really of their visual images, because they don't understand what brand photography can provide, as opposed to just taking a photo in front of a tree or a white wall. Now, of course, the product isn't only as good as its packaging, so there has to be a reality check. Am I over-promising, or can I really deliver what my branding embodies? So I was actually at the supermarket the other day with my 7-year-old, and she pointed out the slogan inside the store, blank brand, we provide everything you need. And she said to me, Ima, it's not always true. You can't always find what you need in the store. That's absolute sheker. Clever girl over here. Okay, so how does brand photography drive more business your way? What it does, it creates trust. High quality professional images, they make you appear credible and reliable to potential clients. Personally, as a photographer myself, when I'm going onto a website, the first thing I do is go and look for their photo. I want to know who I'm dealing with. If I see stock images, that already puts up a boundary. The number two outcome of this is creating a connection. If I see a face, then I'm more likely to buy from them. Having those authentic photos that resonate with your target audience, they help them feel connected to you and to your brand. And these are the beginnings of establishing a relationship. The magic word, everybody wants it, engagement, engagement, engagement. How do I get engagement? So eye-catching, relatable visuals that grab attention and encourage interaction on social media, and they keep readers surfing on your website longer. There's actually a gauge on social media platforms called dwell time. I just learned this actually a couple weeks ago on Chris Do's podcast. You should listen to him. He's absolutely fantastic. So what is dwell time? Dwell time tells the algorithm how long a user gazes at an image or spends reading the caption. The second to last thing is reinforcing your message. Consistent imagery that's aligned with your brand values helps to communicate your message effectively. And the last one everybody always wants is to be able to stand out. Unique, intentional photos, they differentiate you from the competitors, because guess what? Every individual, and no person is alike. Everybody's an individual, and that makes your brand memorable. So like we said, stock images we want to stay away from. The right visuals can push your business to the next level, but it's more about just the pictures. It's about turning viewers into loyal customers, and we all know that takes a very long time. So how do we do that? It's discovering your why. Okay, Lesley also mentioned it. I believe Arielle touched upon it. Just an aside, I think it's really funny when I was making this slide. I wonder if anybody caught the detail in this image of the Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestselling author Moshe Gersht. He has his hands up in the shape of a Y, and I just thought it was so cute because that really is his entire message. So who I am as a person, is somebody that's been working on herself, thank God, for the last 20 years. I'm using different modalities whilst keeping up my photography career. And I really believe that that goes hand in hand with the work that I do today and helping entrepreneurs present themselves visually in the best way possible. I really feel that my mission in life is to help bring out the essence of every entrepreneur. And the way that we do this is through a Zoom discovery deep dive into who you are and what your why is. Okay, what makes you unique? And ultimately reach a beautiful image that will represent that. Another podcast I loved listening to is Mel Robbins, and she comes out with some breakthrough research from the University of Oregon that shows that you have to know your why in order to achieve your goals. Based on the research, knowing your why helps you with self-regulation and prioritizing doing the work over other things that are not as important or simply easier. And if you know that something matters, you'll focus on your main work instead of just scrolling through social media, right? And shopping on Amazon, which of course we all love to do. Now, in the last year myself, I invested in a brand messaging specialist, and I was asked to conduct interviews with my past clients to gather data about my client experience. When serving large companies, you ask them, what are people saying about you? We heard this, right? What messages do they give us in terms of what our brand represents? That, I believe, is a more outside-in approach. And I ask you now, if your brand is under transformation, if you're still discovering your values and your brand image, then the outside-in approach, is that going to cut it? I didn't feel personally like the brand messaging strategist was seeing me and helping me discover my uniqueness and my offer. She didn't help me define my why. So it was actually at a business mastermind that I actually uncovered what was totally obvious, but hidden nonetheless. It came out in a bit of the client interviews, but having the concrete why also helped me step into it. And that's the key. I discovered that my superpower is making people feel at ease in front of the camera and helping them feel comfortable with their image and confident to post on social media. And this is what I call the inside out approach versus the outside in approach. So we are going to jump into a quick as possible little mindful exercise. Okay, so I'm going to ask you all to get a little bit more comfortable. Okay, we've been sitting for a couple hours now, so everybody stretch a little bit. Okay, you can, you know,
We have about 2 minutes.
yeah, shake out your arms. Okay, I'm gonna bring up the music over here. Okay, you can close your eyes and just listen to the hopefully calming sound of my voice.
Okay, we're not actually hearing the music, but your voice is calming us. That's okay.
Okay,
It could be you didn't
so
share with audio,
let's
but
see.
we are running out of time, so we can save that
Okay.
for another time.
All right, so sitting upright with your feet planted on the floor and your arms relaxed, I just want you to slowly inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. I'm going to do some box breathing, which is counting to 4, holding, and exhaling, counting to 4. So we're going to breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And just breathe. I just want to ask all of you a question. If you were to be able to summarize the message of your brand in 3 different words, what would it be? Describe your brand in 3 words. Just think about it for a few seconds. As a personal brand, you're going to want to get in touch with who it is that you are because you are your brand. So for me, it's energizing, actualizing, and real. I could also add in trustworthy. Think about what that means to you. Does anybody want to share in our 1 minute left?
And we don't actually have time to share, unfortunately.
Okay. No
But that's something
problem.
that we can certainly, if anyone wants to write in the chat or that on social media, we can connect and share afterwards. So we do need to end off, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind just giving your summary, and you can even take down
Sure.
your screen share, or unless you've got something that you want to show us, but we do
I
need to
have
end.
one more thing to share with you. Basically, the summary is highlight your superpowers, your values, your goals, define your unique offer, use intentional brand photography to connect with your audience in a strategic way, and just some food for thought to do that homework and figure out what your why is and your three brand images. And something quick that I want to put into the chat afterwards is
You want to
am
just
going
take
to
down
be,
your screen share for now?
yes, one
Take it
second.
down and you can put it into the chat.
Just a
Are we meant
minute.
to see your picture?
1 second. I'm just trying to find the Zoom.
All right.
Beautiful.
Yeah, cute family. We can all see your family, by the way. I don't know if you're aware of that. So maybe just take off your screen share.
Yes, I am just looking for the expand.
Okay, because we do need to end. I gave you more
Okay.
than the 15 minutes, so we can have save
Sure,
that for another
sure.
time. So
Okay,
if
no
you can
problem. So I just wanted
take off
to,
your
yes.
take off your screen share. All right, ladies, firstly, thank you so much. Can you all see the wheel here? Can you all see the wheel spinning? Yes or no? Can I have hands? Yes. Okay. So firstly, thank you so much to Sara for amazing, information and just pushing our borders even further. And also to the amazing Arielle and to our first speaker, Leanne. So afterwards, I will just take this down that we can just spotlight them for a moment. What we have here is part of your branding and part of my branding using the same colors, everything. I found out that I'm able to actually customize the colors of the wheel to do this. So we're going to have a spin. For those of you that are in the room, if I added your name and some of you left, then they will be not entitled to the free book. All right. And we're going to spin and we're going to just see who wins the prize of Power Talks with Women Entrepreneurs. My apologies to my darling Naomi and to Justine, who won it last time, but I'm not including you in this time. So my apologies, but hopefully you are enjoying the book that you received as a gift last time. All right, let's spin the wheel. We're going to have 2 turns. Okay, 2 lucky winners are going to win this, are going to win it. All right, and it needs to be in Israel, I said. Nina, okay. Nina, I will connect with you. Are you based in Israel? Or if you have a way, you're welcome to still get it if I can send it to someone that is based in Israel. Mazal Tov, I will contact you separately to get your prize. All right, let's spin again for the second time and see who wins the second copy of the book. Ah, Arielle, isn't that funny? Okay. All right, there we go. As you see, this is all totally fair and honest. So Mazal Tov, I feel like the lotto announcer, right? Mazal Tov to our winners, to Arielle and to Nina, who have won the free copy of Power Talks with Women Entrepreneurs. So, ladies, we've come to the end of another amazing session. I'm just going to add our 4 speakers that we can just thank you for being with us today. Leanne, let me find you. Where are you? Maybe Leanne had to leave early. I'm not finding her here. She could have left early. All right. So thank you so much for joining us for the Professional Women's Networking Forum. I'm Lesley Kaplan. Thank you again, Arielle. Okay, everyone give an applause to Arielle. Thank you again so much for being with us and being part of this branding session. Thank you to Sara for being part of this branding session. Ladies, make sure that you connect with other people. Very, very important that when you connect, and also as we said on social media, please make sure that you use your image, as Sara mentioned before. Please make sure that you also do share your details and your names. Okay, very often people are writing on social media when people send friend requests and they're not showing all their details. Have a look at your social media profiles. Have a look if all your details are shown. Is your profile linking to your business page? Is it linking to your website? When you send a friend request or somebody tags you, Do they know what you do? Can they connect with you further? And sadly, so many people who I've wanted to either connect with or tag or even see what they do to perhaps bring them as a future guest, I don't see on Facebook what they do. So make sure that is the first place of standing out. That is the first place of your branding. Doesn't matter what you do. Make sure if people send me a friend request, if there's no photo, as what Sara mentioned, or if I can't see what they do, and certainly if they haven't posted recently, I don't accept it. So you want people to know you, you want people to become your brand ambassadors, and you want to build relationships with clients to find your brand. So thank you again, once again, for joining us for the Professional Women's Networking Forum, part of the Israel Networking Hub. Please join the Facebook group if you haven't yet done it. Stay connected, link up, connect with each other. I'm Israel Chai. May we hopefully, B'ezrat Hashem, have a quiet week this week. Yes, another emotional couple of days ahead of us, and even a couple of weeks and longer than that. But we are strong. We will prevail. And small to medium-sized businesses like yourself are making a difference. Thank you. Have a safe day. And we will see you next week on our Monday Motivation and in a month's time at our monthly forum. Bye-bye.